Discover the incredible hidden Constitution. Life-changing truths exposed after 250 years. On a bleak afternoon in a quiet Midwestern town, Sarah stood in the musty attic of her late grandfather's home, dust motes swirling around her. The air hung heavy with memories as she sifted through boxes of forgotten belongings. Life had been a relentless storm since her husband left, leaving her to juggle 2 part-time jobs at the local diner, along with her spirited 8-year-old son, Lucas, and her curious 6-year-old daughter, Mia. Each day was a test of endurance, but the new burden of financial struggle felt like a stone around her neck. As her fingers trailed over the rough surface of an old trunk, she felt a heartbeat within a heavy thud of hope. She opened it, and nestled inside was a weathered, forgotten copy of the U.S. Constitution. Its pages were fragile yet alive with centuries of stories untold. Flipping through the iconic lines, a flood of emotion washed over her. This was not just a book. It was a lifeline to a past she never knew. Suddenly, a surge of pride filled her chest. Her grandfather wasn't an ordinary man. He had fought for justice in his community. As stories of his courage echoed in her mind, she felt the fire of rebellion ignite within her. Memories from Lucas and Mia treated her like a superhero, whisking her away from the mundane to the extraordinary possibilities of their family's legacy. But as Sarah stood there, the world outside loomed. A slick developer had arrived in town, wooing her neighbors with the promise of modernity while threatening to demolish the life they had lovingly cultivated together. The weight of her financial issues loomed, yes, but so did the inspiration of her ancestors. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you could drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let us continue stepping back from the past. Sarah felt the urgency grow. The town buzzed with whispers, people sharing stories of their struggles, retired teachers who couldn't make ends meet, laid-off factory workers with dreams dashed. Just as she found herself withdrawn, a realization struck her. Her grandfather had once led a grassroots movement against the very forces tearing her community apart. Tears brimmed her eyes, not just for lost heroes, but for the new path she would carve for her children. With resolve igniting her spirit, Sarah gathered her neighbors, facing their fears together. They planned a rally at the town hall, a voice rising from the ashes of despair. Sarah hesitated, beginning to feel the weight of their expectations. But when she looked into Lucas and Mia's sparkling eyes, pure belief shone through. This was about them, about fighting for the life they dreamed of. As the meeting approached, secrets began to unravel. Deep-rooted connections between her grandfather's fight and the truths scribbled in that aged constitution were revealed, fueling her momentum. Just before the rally, Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that the time had come to reclaim their story. Would they stand united, or let the tides of unkind fortune sweep them away? In that pivotal moment, Sarah discovered that they were more than just a collection of victims. They were the proud voices of a community. The clock was ticking, and this fight was only just beginning. The night before the rally felt electric. Sarah could barely sleep, her mind an agitated swirl of thoughts, hopes, and fears. Each creak of the old house echoed the worries that crescendoed in her head. She couldn't forget the worried faces of her neighbors, all gambles on hope resting in her hands. They believed in her, but what if she let them down? With the sun barely breaking through the horizon, Sarah finally rose, the weight of responsibility pressing heavy on her. She walked to the kitchen, where the smell of coffee filled the air. Lucas and Mia were still asleep, their innocent dreams untouched by the bubbling unrest outside. She paused for a moment, watching them, her heart swelling. They deserved a better future. Their laughter deserved more than just survival. It deserved triumph. Gathering her thoughts, Sarah brewed herself a strong cup, her eyes falling on the open Constitution spread over the kitchen table. The words jumped off the page, igniting a sense of purpose in her. We the people. It was a phrase that bore silent power, a reminder that they had a voice. Every word seemed to resonate with the heartbeat of their community, their dreams, the struggles, and the perseverance needed to fight for what was right. As the hours ticked away, she threw on her favorite hiking boots and set out with a flyer, paper in hand, to rally support. Some neighbors waved from their porches. Others stopped for a chat when they spotted her. The undercurrent of dread in the air slowly dissipated with the conversations they had. Each pledge of support was a spark, igniting hope not just for her, but for everyone yearning to build a future. They exchanged stories, struggles etched on their faces, determination in their eyes. "Are you really going to speak?" Mrs. Hargrove, the elderly lady from down the street, asked with an uncertain smile. "I have to," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "If not me, then who?" "That's right," Mr. Thompson piped in, his voice gruff but warm. "You'll do great, Sarah. Just remember what your grandfather stood for." With every conversation, nerves transformed into resolve. Each commitment to attend the rally felt like armor for the fight ahead. They were tired, they were weary, but they were not broken. The truth settled deep within her. The community's strength would mirror her own. As dusk settled, Sarah gathered Lucas and Mia, who clutched homemade signs decorated with bright colors and enthusiastic scribbles. "We want to help, Mom," Mia exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement, while Lucas nodded, serious yet proud. In that moment, Sarah felt a weight lift. This was not just her fight, it was a family affair. Under the dim light of street lamps, they made their way to the town hall. Heart-pounding, Sarah glanced at her kids. "No matter what happens, remember we fight for each other and for this town. We stand together." The crowd began to gather, their murmurs rising like a tide. With every familiar face in the crowd, she felt a warm wave of solidarity. Just then, her phone buzzed with a message, a reminder of her past. An old friend warning her of the developer's guards patrolling the area. Tension dripped into the air like rain on parched earth. In the dimness of the twilight, Sarah inhaled deeply, ready to shape their fate. But just then, a figure loomed in the shadows. Would they stand firm against the looming threat, or fracture under pressure? As the red light of the setting sun faded into night, uncertainty hung over them like a storm, hinting at the turbulent hours to come. The air was thick with anticipation. As Sarah stood at the edge of the crowd, she felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The murmurs of her neighbors created a backdrop to her racing thoughts, swirling in her mind like autumn leaves caught in a brisk wind. The figure lingering in the shadows hadn't moved. It was a tall man, his demeanor unreadable, watching the gathering with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. Sarah's heart raced, and she could almost hear it beating in her ears. Was he one of the developer's men? She scanned the faces around her, looking for support, but they were focused, engaged in conversations about the rally, hopes igniting with every shared vision. She could feel Lucas's small hand clasping her tight, his grip steady. He looked up with those bright, serious eyes that mirrored her own uncertainties. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" he whispered, barely audible above the growing murmurs of the crowd. With a tight smile, she crouched to meet his gaze. "We will be. This is important, Lucas. We're here together, and together we can face anything." Mia chimed in, her voice light yet firm for her age. "Yeah, we're stronger as a team." The innocence in her words warmed Sarah's heart, sparking courage in her veins. As the crowd began to hush, Sarah felt a shift within herself. This was her moment. She stepped forward to the makeshift stage, her breath hitching slightly. The lights were bright, making it difficult to see anyone clearly, but she felt the presence of her community, their hopes riding on her shoulders like an old, trustworthy cloak. "Thank you all for being here tonight." Her voice rang out, and the crowd responded in kind with soft murmurs of encouragement. This fight isn't about a piece of land or a property line. It's about what we stand for as a community, what we will not allow our town to become. Her chest swelled as she continued. "We are more than just individuals, we are families, friends, and neighbors. We come from many walks of life, but tonight we stand together. As the crowd clapped and cheered, Sarah's gaze kept drifting back to the figure in the shadows. Was he a threat or simply an observer? She could feel a heaviness in the air, as though the night held its breath. Then, just as she was about to dive deeper into her speech, a commotion erupted to her left. The figure stepped into the light, revealing himself as a man in a dark jacket, flanked by two others who looked equally menacing. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. Uncertainty rippled through the crowd. Gasps and whispers broke out, their energy morphing into something darker as fear crept in. "We don't want any trouble," Sarah said, her heart pounding again, louder than before. "We are here for peace, for our community." But doubts clouded her resolve. The man smirked, his face twisting into a sneer that sent shivers down her spine. "You think this is going to change anything?" His voice was smooth, laced with arrogance. "You're just a bunch of dreamers." A surge of anger flared inside Sarah. She remembered the faces of her neighbors, the hope that sparkled in their eyes. "We may be dreamers, but we are also doers. Together we can protect our future." As she spoke, she noticed some of her neighbors stepping forth, a protective wall forming around her. Yet, the glare from the men remained. This was a battle for more than land. It felt like a battle for their very souls. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility return, but she wasn't just carrying it herself. It was shared amongst all of them. What would happen next? Would they be able to stand firm, or would fear tear them apart? She took a deep breath as the tension coiled tighter, hearts racing in the fraying air. The night was far from over, and the real fight was just beginning. The tension hung like a heavy mist, thickening around Sarah and the crowd. The man's laughter echoed, mocking the very essence of unity they had come to embody. "You think shouting will save you? That you can fight what's inevitable?" Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Each word he spoke felt like a wave crashing against the fragile resolve of the community. "We're not afraid of you," she declared, her voice steadier than she felt. "You can try to intimidate us, but our strength lies in our togetherness." The crowd murmured harder, voices rising as people around her began to shift. Some held hands, while others whispered reassurances. Lucas squeezed her hand tighter, pulling her focus back to him. He stood solid amidst the surrounding chaos, his expression one of determination, almost mirroring her own. "Can't you see?" Sarah pushed on, as if drawing courage from the small boy beside her. "This land isn't just a piece of property to us. It's our home, our history, and we will defend it together." Lucas beamed at her, a proud smile breaking through his earlier worry. Sarah's words sparked something in the crowd, a collective heartbeat pulsing with energy. Faces began to light up, and she saw nods of resolve spreading, uniting them against the looming threat. "You think we're just dreamers?" One older man shouted from the back, his voice clear and resonant. "Dreamers took the first steps toward all of the things we cherish today. And those dreams became our reality." The man's sneer faltered, momentarily caught off guard by the resounding call of support. But his companions remained silent, their shadows looming ominously behind him. Sarah seized the moment. "We are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. They fought for this ground, and we will not let your greed erase their legacy." Cheers erupted, fueling her resolve. She was no longer just speaking for herself or her children. She was advocating for every soul in the crowd. As the energy surged, the figure before her retreated slightly, appearing less confident as the crowd rallied around her. Sarah felt a sense of hope blossom against the darkness. This was not just a speech. This was a declaration of their spirit and determination. "Now is our time to show our unity," she shouted over the growing cheer. "Let us prove that community matters more than profit." The crowd erupted, a wave of voices echoing in agreement. But then, the man in the jacket straightened, his eyes narrowing with renewed anger. "You've made your point, but don't mistake this for victory," he spat, his tone laced with contempt. "We'll be back." With that, the three men turned and disappeared into the shadows from where they'd come, leaving a charged atmosphere in their wake. Sarah's heart raced not just from the confrontation, but from the undeniable strength she felt manifesting around her. But as cheers faded and the crowd began to settle, doubts intruded again. Would they really come back? What would that mean for her family? The night lingered, echoing with the gravity of what had just transpired. As she glanced at the faces surrounding her, camaraderie mingled with unease. How far would they have to go to protect what mattered? Would their newfound courage hold when pushed again? With Lucas and Mia beside her, Sarah felt an unfamiliar sense of conviction. There was still much to fight for, and the battle was not yet over. But the question remained: how much was she willing to risk for the future she dreamed her children would inherit? The night was thick with uncertainty and anticipation, and Sarah knew the fight was far from finished. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah's heart beamed with a mixture of pride and fear. She took in the faces around her, a mosaic of hope and anxiety. They were all shaken, still feeling the weight of the confrontation, yet somehow buoyed by the shared experience. "Mom!" Lucas's voice broke through her thoughts. He tugged at her sleeve, his eyes bright despite the tense atmosphere. "Did you see them back down? We really showed them." There was an innocence in his joy that made Sarah's heart flutter with a blend of joy and concern. "Yes, sweetie, we did," she said, kneeling to be at eye level. "But it's not over. We need to be ready for whatever they plan next." Mia appeared then, brushing grass off her jeans and looking up at her mother with wide eyes. "What if they try to take our home again?" What if Sarah placed a gentle hand on Mia's shoulder? "We stick together as a family, no matter what." The little girl nodded, though she still looked uncertain. Sarah wished she could shield her children from this turmoil, but she knew that wasn't the reality they faced. "Well, we can't let them scare us," Lucas piped up, his resolve palpable. "We should make signs. Let everyone know we are not afraid." A grin crept onto Sarah's face. "That is a great idea. Let us show them our voices, in every way we can." As they headed home, the stillness of the night wrapped around them like a blanket. The stars twinkled above, a stark contrast to the turmoil within. Each step was a reminder of everything they had to lose, which pressed heavier than the darkness surrounding them. When they reached their property, the familiar sight brought a wave of comfort. The old oak tree stood tall, its branches swaying slightly in the evening breeze. It was their sanctuary, a connection to their roots and history. "I'm going to help make the signs tomorrow," Lucas declared, his excitement palpable. Despite her anxiety, Sarah felt warmth bloomed in her chest. Her children would stand beside her. They were in this together. Later that night, as she tucked Lucas and Mia into bed, Sarah kissed their foreheads gently. "No matter what happens tomorrow, remember that home is where our hearts are, and together we can face anything." But as she settled into bed herself, the image of the man's sneer haunted her thoughts. Was being together enough to withstand the storm that was brewing? How much strength did it require to resist the inevitable? As she drifted into a restless sleep, the weight of her worries pressed against her chest. Dreams flickered between hope and despair, with shadows whispering cruel reminders of the battle ahead. When dawn broke, the light streamed through her window, illuminating not just their home, but also the resolve within her. Today was going to be different. She could feel it deep in her bones. As Sarah moved through her morning routine, she heard laughter and chatter from neighbors gathering outside. The sense of community was palpable, and she hoped they'd all be ready to stand together again. But a nagging thought tugged at her mind. What strategies did they need to develop? And more importantly, how far were they willing to go when the time for action truly came? Stepping outside, she took a deep breath and felt the breeze weave through her hair. As she approached the gathering, a voice in the back of her mind whispered, "Today might change everything." A chill ran through her as she processed the thought. Would they finally unite in a way that strengthened their bond? Or would the fear of loss tear them apart? Sarah straightened her back. Whatever was coming, she was ready to confront it, alongside those she loved. What she didn't know was how this pivotal day would reshape her community and challenge her concepts of courage, sacrifice, and home. As Sarah stepped into the sunlight, the warmth washed over her, momentarily pushing away the shadows in her mind. The air buzzed with energy, a palpable enthusiasm humming through the crowd of neighbors gathered on the porch and in the yard. Faces, some familiar and others new, cast hopeful smiles her way. "Sarah," called out Mr. Thompson, a retired fireman, as he waved her over. "We were just talking about the meeting today. We need everyone to pitch in." His brow furrowed, revealing the seriousness of the situation while his tight smile held a flicker of defiance. "Absolutely," she replied, joining them. "What's the plan?" Discussing strategies soon filled the air. Charts, banners, and signs, each idea bounced back and forth like a basketball. They were all feeding off one another's intensity. Lucas and Mia wandered through the crowd, collecting ideas, their little feet trampling grass paths to Sarah. It was a sweet reminder of their boundless spirit. "Let us make a giant sign that says we stand together," Lucas declared, throwing his hands in the air as if summoning cheers from the crowd. Laughter erupted, and for a moment, the fear that had haunted them all faded just a touch. "We'll need enough supplies, too," Mia chimed in, her voice small but filled with determination. "Markers and big cardboard." The adults nodded, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a wave of pride wash over her. They were turning their anxiety into action, channeling their emotions into a force that could stand against the looming threats. Just then, a voice echoed from the side of the house. "We should organize a march. Show them how many of us care." It was Jenny, a woman known for her fierce spirit. The crowd murmured in agreement, the fire of unity igniting in their hearts. With each idea exchanged, the day unfolded like petals from a blooming flower. Sarah could feel it, the transformation of fear into focus, despair into determination. It was contagious. As the morning melted into afternoon, preparations turned into a lively dance of collaboration. Neighbors brought snacks, coloring supplies, and old sheets for signs. The laughter and conversations mingled with the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of laughter from children playing. However, as they decorated their makeshift signs, Sarah caught sight of Mrs. Keller, her neighbor on the left, with deep lines etched across her brow. The woman held a sign with trembling hands, her face a mask of anxiety. "Mrs. Keller?" Sarah approached gently. "Are you okay? I don't want to lose my home. I've lived here for over 30 years. She murmured, her voice trembling. "What if we're not enough?" The fear of loss had a grip on her heart, and Sarah's heart ached for her. "We are more than enough. We have each other. That's our strength," Sarah replied, squeezing her shoulder softly. As the sun began to set, casting golden rays on their work, Sarah stood back to admire the sight before her. The signs read bold messages, each crafted with care and determination. "We stand together, our future matters, and no home is worth losing." Each word was a promise carved into the fabric of their community. But as the warmth of togetherness wrapped around her, the creeping shadow of doubt whispered in Sarah's ear. Was there truly enough support for the fight they were about to face? Would their combined voices be strong enough to challenge the darkness threatening their home? And then, as they prepared for the march, a car rolled up, silhouetted against the sunset. The engine idled ominously, drawing the eyes of the crowd. Sarah's heart raced. Who was this? Were they friend or foe? As the figure stepped out, anticipation built in the air like a coiled spring, ready to snap. In that moment, everything hinged on the next words spoken. The figure slid out of the car, tall and imposing. As the sunlight caught the stranger's features, Sarah's breath hitched. It was the mayor, a known face in the community, but today his expression was unreadable. "Good evening, everyone," he called out, his voice steady yet laced with authority. The murmurs of the crowd quieted, curiosity mixing with an undercurrent of tension. "I noticed the preparations for your rally," he continued, taking a step toward them, hands clasped in front. "And I would like to talk about your concerns." Nervous glances exchanged among neighbors spoke volumes. Sarah clutched her sign tighter, feeling the weight of their collective anxiety. What did he want? Was this an attempt to quell their bravery before it ignited into something fierce and unyielding? I understand much is at stake for all of you, the mayor said, his gaze settling on Mrs. Keller, who stood frozen in place. But we need to find a balanced approach. I'm here to offer a solution. Solution? Jenny piped up, her voice strained. Are we gonna have to back down? We just want our voices heard. The mayor shook his head. Not at all. But I urge you to consider the ramifications of your actions. The developers have plans that cannot be halted without reasonable discourse. I believe there's a way to reach a compromise. Murmurs rose again, this time shrill with doubt. Sarah felt breaths hitching, hearts racing. Would this be the negotiation they needed, or merely a trap to disarm their unity? Listen, the mayor continued, raising a hand to calm the crowd's rising tension. What if I help you set up a meeting with the developers? You deserve to have your concerns heard. But I'm asking that you approach this with a civil dialogue rather than a confrontation. Sarah exchanged glances with Mr. Thompson and Jenny. There was a precarious balance here, between fighting for their homes and staying hopeful for a peaceful resolution. Part of her wanted to scream that they shouldn't trust the very ones who threaten their community. But another part of her recognized the value of a direct conversation. What if they refused to listen? Sarah's voice broke the silence, echoing her uncertainty. What happens if they come back with the bulldozers anyway? The mayor's face softened just a bit. You have my word that I'll advocate fiercely for you. If you agree to speak with them, I'll be there too. I'll ensure they know the strength of your community and the love you have for your homes. The crowd seemed to waver, uncertainty hanging heavily. Sarah could see Mrs. Keller's face, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. But doubt clouded the elderly lady's eyes. Would this be a temporary fix, or a route to protect all they cherished? Lucas tugged at Sarah's shirt and whispered, "Mom, what do we do?" Her heart raced as thoughts collided. Could they truly risk everything on a possible future meeting? Or was this their chance to save the homes they loved? Before she could decide, all eyes turned back to the mayor, who stood waiting, expectantly. I believe you can make a difference. Let us not let fear dictate our actions. As the sun dipped lower, the colors of sunset painted the sky orange and pink, casting a warm glow over them all. Sarah felt a surge of emotions: fear, hope, determination. The moment felt electric, as if everyone held their breath, waiting for her next word. "All right," she said finally, her voice stronger than she felt. "We'll hear them out. But we need more than promises. We need their commitment to the community." A ripple of agreement ran through the crowd, a collective decision taking root. As they banded together again, Sarah's spirit lifted, but the weight of their conversation lingered. What awaited them in that meeting, and would the mayor's presence truly count for something? Just then, a child burst forward, disrupting her thoughts. "Wait, can we still do the march?" "Of course," Sarah answered, feeling the pulse of resolve gather around them like a protective embrace. But the feeling of approaching uncertainty pulled at her. She couldn't ignore the nagging worry that whatever was coming next could change everything. With the momentum renewed, they took their places, preparing signs once more. Yet, a whisper in Sarah's mind remained, asking one burning question. Would their voices be enough to drown out the silence of indifference? As she stepped into the parade, the air crackled with anticipation for what lay ahead. Knowing that the true battle was only just beginning, the sound of footsteps echoed as the march began, hearts pounding in unison. Sarah led the pack, her sign held high. Surrounding her were familiar faces, friends, neighbors, families all united with one purpose. An electric energy surged through the air, igniting a sense of bravery that seemed to overshadow their fears. The crowd swelled behind her, an extension of her own determination. They chanted slogans about community, love, and preservation, each word a weapon against the looming threat of developers and their machines. The streets became alive with colors and voices, laughter ringing out despite the heaviness that hung over them. Yet, Sarah's heart felt heavier than before. The mayor's offer lingered in her mind, a faint glimmer of hope amid the chaos. Could they truly trust him? She glanced back at the familiar faces, some bright with excitement, while others bore expressions of deep-seated worry. "Keep moving forward," boomed Mr. Thompson, his voice breaking through her thoughts. He marched alongside Jenny, a determined glint in his eye. "Don't let this moment slip away, right?" Sarah replied, her voice barely above the crowd. Yet, beneath her strength was a trembling doubt. The anticipation of a meeting with the developers on the horizon loomed like an unseen shadow. As they rounded the corner, the park came into view. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the grass. Sarah felt her chest tighten as she approached the area where they planned to gather. This was where their stories would be told, where they'd stand tall and define who they were as a community. But then the silence swept over them as they neared the park. The crowd began to notice murmurs of confusion bubbling up. Up ahead, a large group of people, armed with signs and chants supporting the development, had gathered. "Those are the pro-development people," someone in the crowd shouted, voice quaking. Fear swept through their group like a wave, the fading sunlight reflecting both their anger and their apprehension. Sarah's stomach dropped. What if their voices were drowned out? What if the meeting with the developers didn't even happen? Would everything they had built together today evaporate in mere moments? Lucas clutched her hand tighter, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "Mom, what if they try to stop us?" She felt the squeeze of his small fingers. "We won't let them." Her words felt more like a prayer than a promise. A sudden shout rang out from the opposing group. "You can't stop progress. Your homes won't stop us." The taunting felt like a slap against their collective resolve. In that moment, Sarah's heart raced again, not from fear, but a precise clarity. This was the moment of truth. Their belief in community was about to be tested. "We have to stand tall," she yelled, despite the shaking of her voice. "For every home, every family, we cannot let them divide us." The chant began to swell, born from her words, rising from deep within the crowd, echoing off the walls of the buildings around them. "Save our homes! Save our homes!" With each repetition, Sarah felt her resolve strengthen. She turned toward the mayor, who had trailed in the background, watching. He seemed taken aback by the defiance. "Get ready," she warned the crowd. "We won't back down." Just as the rally reached its fever pitch, she caught the mayor's gaze. He nodded, a flicker of something like understanding passing between them. Was this the moment that would spark change? Or was it just the beginning of a greater challenge? The air was thick with anticipation. For every shout filled with determination came the reminder of what hung in the balance. As they marched forward, a new cadence to their chant emerged. They were ready, a force tethered together by love for their homes. But could that be enough? The question loomed over them, begging to be answered. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the night began to darken, casting long shadows where anything could take form. What would the next hour hold for Sarah and her neighbors? Would the forces that threatened their homes finally hear their voices? The noise echoed like thunder, the crowd surging forward, a unified force filling the air with resilience. Sarah felt the warmth of the moment wash over her. Yet, even as they shouted their mantra, she could see the developers' group holding their ground. They stood tall, a wall of discontent. "Why are they even here?" someone shouted from the back. That question hung heavy, a tangible weight in the air. Sarah couldn't help but wonder about their motives. This wasn't just about progress. It was about destroying a lifetime of memories, about uprooting families that had poured their hearts into this community. She turned to Lucas, whose wide eyes reflected her own dread. "They believe they're right," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "But we know what is true for us." With a deep breath, Sarah raised her sign higher. "Remember what brought us here," she called out to her neighbors, her voice unwavering albeit shaky. As she spoke, their faces transformed. Determination replaced fear. A spark ignited in their eyes, the realization that they were not alone in this fight. Mr. Thompson stepped forward. "We stand for our homes. This isn't just about buildings. It's about love and memories." The applause rang out, strong and confident. Sarah's heart soared. They were all declaring that they mattered, that their stories were worth fighting for. Across the way, the developers exchanged glances. A mixture of ridicule and irritation crossed their faces. One of them, a tall man in a sharp suit, raised a megaphone. "This is futile. You can't stop innovation." The crowd responded with a wave of jeers and chants. But Sarah's heart sank. Could words alone really be enough to topple the money and power behind those machines? But inside her, a fire sparked, pushing back the doubts. "We are innovation," she shouted, feeling the words resonate like an anthem. "We are the stories that built these streets." The chant returned, and this time it was filled with life, dancing from the crowd like flames igniting. "Save our homes! Save our homes!" Just then, a little girl, a neighbor from down the street, held up her handmade sign covered in bright colors. It read, "My house is where my heart is." Gasps spread throughout the crowd, followed by a thread of laughter. It was an unexpected moment, a reminder of innocence in the chaos. The developers didn't seem to see the value in these stories. But they did to Sarah, and to many others. These were the stories that anchored them. Stories of laughter, shared meals, dreams nurtured within those walls. Feeling emboldened by the girl's sign, Sarah turned to the mayor once more. Would he realize the power of their shared history? She needed him on her side, needed to know that he understood. "We have to make them hear us," she urged. He stepped forward, eyeing both groups as if weighing them against each other. The determination in his gaze began to flicker. "What do you want me to do?" he asked softly, the question carrying the heavy weight of a decision. As Sarah opened her mouth to answer, a flash of lights illuminated the park. News cameras had arrived, capturing the crescendo of emotions, the clash of ideals. This was their moment to be seen, but now the stakes felt even higher. "Sarah, look!" Lucas tugged at her sleeve, pointing at the scrappy sign-waving crowd. The weight of hope mixed with anxiety as the realization sunk in. What they did tonight could ripple far beyond this park. And just then, as fate would have it, a familiar face stepped out from the shadows of the opposing group, a childhood friend who had chosen a different path. Would she stand by Sarah, or against her? "Why now?" A voice from the past echoed, even as the present thundered around them. The tension in the air crackled like static. What answer did her friend need? The air felt charged, filled with unvoiced questions that would define them all. Would the solidarity they had forged be strong enough to weather the storm? One decision, one shift in loyalty could change everything. As Sarah stood there, the noise of the crowd faded into the background. She took a breath, focusing on the familiar face emerging from the opposing group. It was Emily, her childhood friend, who had always had a knack for rallying people, but now appeared at the forefront of the development side. The tension twisted deep in Sarah's stomach. Memories of shared laughter came rushing back, memories that felt like a lifetime ago. "Emily," Sarah called out, raising her hand. The crowd quieted, tension thick in the air. "What are you doing here?" Emily frowned, glancing between Sarah and the developers. "I'm here for progress, Sarah. This is about making our town better for everyone." Her voice floated across the clearing, filled with conviction. "Better?" Sarah's heart raced, fighting the urge to cry. "By tearing down what makes this place home? What about those stories, the memories of those who lived and loved in these houses?" The crowd stirred, murmurs breaking out like waves crashing against the shore. "Those are just buildings," Emily replied, shrugging. "We need new opportunities. If we stay in the past, we'll get left behind." "No, Emily," Sarah pushed back, shaking her head. "Our past is what makes us who we are. These homes? They're bursting with life, with hope. We can build for the future without destroying our roots. We don't have to choose one or the other." A silence fell. Then the murmurs grew into a crescendo of agreement. "We can have both," someone shouted from the crowd. "Together," echoed another voice. Emily hesitated, uncertain. Sarah could see the doubt flickering in her friend's eyes. She began, but the words faltered. Sarah took a step forward, her heart pounding. "Can't you see? We've banded together for a reason. This community isn't just a collection of houses. It's a family, Lucas and Mia stepped up beside her, clutching their little handmade signs, their faces bright with belief. "Families," Mia declared, waving her sign. "We want to stay together." The innocence in her voice pierced the air, and for a moment, Sarah could see Emily's defenses begin to crack. Brian, the developer in the sharp suit, clenched his jaw, irritation etched on his face. This was not going according to his plan. "Don't listen to them, Em. We're offering jobs, investment," he interrupted. "You're offering destruction," Sarah shot back, fire igniting within her. "This isn't just about profit. It's about people." The crowd rallied behind her, the atmosphere electric. "Our stories matter," shouted another neighbor. With every passing moment, confidence swelled in Sarah. If she could reach Emily, there was a chance to make sense of this chaos. "Remember the projects we did as kids, Emily? The community garden, the park cleanups? That was about bringing people together." Realization washed over Emily's face. A fleeting glimpse of the girl who once shared dreams and laughter with her resurfaced in her eyes. "I didn't think," Sarah pressed on, hopeful. "You have the power to help us find a solution that doesn't tear apart families or memories. Will you help us, or turn your back on everything we once stood for?" The silence that fell was profound. Sarah could feel the weight of the decision hanging in the air, the collective hope of her neighbors clinging to it. The developers shifted uncomfortably, unable to sway the hearts and minds that had united before them. "I don't want to cause division, Sarah." Emily's voice trembled, emotions peeking through the otherwise stone facade she had worn for so long. "Then stand with us," Sarah urged, stepping closer. "For every past and for every future living in these homes. Let us create something together because this community deserves better." Another ripple through the crowd. The whispers grew stronger. The tide was turning. Emily took a deep breath, the vulnerability shining through. "I want to do what's right for everyone. I'll talk to them." It was a hesitant promise, but the crowd erupted in a wave of cheers. With renewed hope, Sarah felt the fear dissolve, replaced by the strength of unity. The fear that had hung over them for so long now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by belief and resilience bubbling to the surface. "Together," Mr. Thompson bellowed again, and in kind, the crowd roared back, their voices intertwining a powerful declaration of solidarity against the storm. As the sun dipped lower, bathing the park in golden hues, they turned to face the developers, ready to claim their narrative once more. Whatever the outcome of that tense meeting would be, one truth remained clear. They were a community, a family, forged in the fires of love, courage, and relentless hope. In that moment, Sarah knew it wasn't just about protecting their homes. It was about nurturing the connections they cherished. They would face challenges ahead, but standing together, their voices strong and sincere, they would carve out a future worth fighting for. And with the weight of their collective power, they moved forward. The next chapter awaited, but whatever came next, they would meet it together, hearts full of purpose and determination. As the evening settled, sparking life in the faces of her neighbors, Sarah felt a warmth ignite within her. In every uncertain moment, she found inspiration. The fight had only just begun, but they were ready. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about this uplifting ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and believe in the power of community. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of joining this movement.